Thank you for joining The Ones Changing the World, India's first Future Tech Meets Sustainability podcast. And today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Santhosh Thannikat, who's a sustainability expert and a mentor. So Santhosh, really appreciate you taking time and being part of a humble podcast. Now, sustainability obviously is one of the most important thing, but not many people like to talk about it, because most of the time we like to hide it under the rug. Though the climate crisis is growing like a huge menace, and if we do not control it right now, it's got all the potentials to completely possibly disrupt the entire planet. So someone who's been vested in the space of sustainability, how urgent do you think is the climate problem in India, and what do you think we can do to mitigate India's climate crisis?
Okay, how serious climate change and related issues are? We have plenty of examples happening around the world, plenty of calamities that are happening. We had, in Kerala, for example, in 2018, we had an unprecedented rain, which is supposed to be, raining for a whole month. It rained in 24 hours. And, this sort of changes in weather patterns and, the rains and, all these are going to cause a lot of damages, not only just to humans, but to the entire ecosystem in which we are living. It's not just about loss of property or loss of a lot of money. It's also going to completely change the way we are going to live in the future. Unfortunately, even after this kind of calamities or shock treatments by the nature, we are not learning the lessons that are supposed to be learned from these kind of events. That is what I'm afraid that's happening. For example, in Kerala, after this this flood and all that, we were trying to rebuild whatever was lost during the rain and the flood. Instead of we did not even look at how the planning has to be done. What are the things that went wrong during the flooding time, and what are the learnings that we have as a society? What are the learnings that we need to make out of this, and what are the policy changes that are required? So these kind of changes, if that are not happening, these calamities will repeat, and then there will be a situation where it will lead to utter chaotic situation in the society. It can lead to civil unrest and fighting between communities or migration. And a lot of such problems can be there.
Right. These extreme weather conditions are becoming a norm nowadays. It's not just Kerala, it's all around the world, from Africa to the Middle Eastern countries to obviously locations here in India. We last year, I think we saw around 50 degrees, and I think humanity's mindless consumption without conservation is leading to a world where we are pushing the boundaries of what we can produce in this world. So there are so many wrongs and which needs to, like you mentioned, which needs to be addressed. And I think there needs to be more attention given to the urgency of this climate crisis, because I think that there are some really big politicians and industrialists in the world also who kind of undermine the climate crisis. So I think there has to be a concerted effort in looking at climate crisis with a complete serious lens and saying that this is the only planet that we have, and if we do not course correct, we could be staring towards a path of total disaster. Would you like to explain to my audience what circular economy is, and how do you think India, it's the various states and possibly organization can work towards becoming sustainable?
Yeah, coming to circular economy. Before that, let me just tell you about the kind of actions that are required. At the individual level, the actions that can be taken by humans that has become very very limited and very it's not going to work in that way anymore. We need massive changes. We need very drastic and massive changes happening, not just in Kerala or India. It has to happen around the world, because if China is polluting, it's also going to affect us. Okay, so that sort of change has to happen around the world. What I feel is that we need drastic changes in the society. It can be in the way of some business ideas. For example, Uber has came out with a platform wherein the shared mobility can be I'm not saying that Uber is the only um, solution in that segment. It can be any similar product or service ideas that can drastically change the entire consumption pattern of a society. That is one way of solving the problem. The other easy or method that has to be adopted is the policy level changes. Say, for example, when India decides to say reduce the consumption of petroleum products by 2070. It's a long target, but still, when we dare to declare that this is our way of this is our target and this is how we are going to do it, then that sort of a policy change is also going to make a lot of drastic change in the society. So that sort of drastic change has to happen not just within India; it has to spread across the world. But all the people around the world, they are all looking at successful models or good models that can be emulated without hurting their existing way of life, or even existing economic system that are prevalent in those countries. So that is where the question of circular economy is coming. It's basically, it started off by saying that okay, we need to reduce and reuse products and products to the maximum extent possible, especially electronics and clothing and segments like that. But it is slowly getting spread to all the other industries. Okay, it is becoming something like what Mahatma Ji said 100 years back about Swaraj and self-reliant villages. So that sort of a concept is putting forwarded by this circular economy model. So that is going to have a tremendous impact in the global, the way we are seeing it now, because now we don't mind getting something imported from China or imported from US or any of the countries. But when we look at the price of the item, it is not just the price of the product that matters. It is also how much this product has traveled. What is the environmental impact that it has caused in that host country, and how much energy has been spent for transporting that item from that country to here. So that is one major concern. Secondly, there is something called for example, food security. Now when the Russians invaded Ukraine, you know that many of the countries are facing food shortages, because Ukraine used to be a large exporter of wheat from that country. So food security is one of the major factor that is going to play a key role in circular economy, because every other country has to understand that any political instability or even a climatic instability, if there is a problem in rain or in sunshine, it is going to affect the food production, and it is going to affect the movement of food to from one place to another. So circular economy is going to be the future, and that is the way it should be moving as well.
Right, completely. Yeah. I mean, the way we produce and consume, at least, when there are these startups who are trying to solve a problem, in the excitement of, solving the problem, creating a product, they fail to realize that by solving a problem, you have possibly solved the problem, but then
They are
you've
creating
created
a job.
another problem. So, yes, but I think the newer generation of entrepreneurs are a little more careful. They they are, trying to, create things which fits in the circular economy. And yes, I think that movement, that there's more education needs to be done, more awareness about, okay, that, our world is staring at a climate crisis, and we need to take these small measures, and all of us collectively need to come in and play a role over there. And you also mentioned about that, how a certain country, whether it's India or China, and the way we produce, we think that, I mean, whatever, when we produce, the pollution is possibly, it's just, it's just here in India, but it's not like that. I think what the problem that we create in our nation, I think, affects the entire world, and that was plain to see with COVID. Who would have thought that, I mean, a virus which happened in China would have spread into the entire world, like a network effect. And you mentioned also about shared mobility and recycling being a possibility, like a possible approaches that, nations, organizations need to look at, rather than, mindless consumption of just keeping on buying things. Now, I was on your LinkedIn post, and you've created a few posts and especially it caught my attention, because those posts says, stop buying EVs, stop buying houses, and those kind of things. So would you like to unpack that? Because, and maybe while you are at it, I mean, do share your views on EVs, clean energies. Do you think that it could play a role in reversing climate impact?
Stop buying electric car. That was the first title I gave, which that particular post got a very good response from LinkedIn, which was quite amazing even for me. I never expected to get. I mean, it's almost close to 1 million views now, and around 6,000, 7,000 comments, and things like that. So yeah, maybe the title itself was very catchy, so that is why it got good acceptance. EVs, I'm not against technology. I'm not against electric vehicles at all. No, but what I have mentioned is that stop buying electric cars. Okay, so this is buying a personal car for personal use. So this was a mistake that we made in the last century. We when the car was invented, or when the petroleum products were making its inroad into the market, people were always promoted to buy cars, and the whole economy or economies of the nations around the world started revolving around this oil based market conditions. Especially, they all started promoting private ownership of cars. So look at what happened in the last century. All the roads, let it be US, Europe, or China, or any country for that matter, wherever you go, you see that there are very huge infrastructure investment for roads. At the same time, almost all the places you will find traffic jams and clogging of all the urban areas, and it's really crazy, like, right? I mean, how much ever you spend for your vehicle and how much ever you spend for your highway development, at the end of it you are sitting in a car in an iron box for a couple of hours to reach from one place to another. So this is not at all giving you happiness. At the end of the day, we want to buy a car to get a personal, happiness and pleasure and convenience and all that. So all these things are getting lost in the process of all these uh, getting too much of the cars on the roads. Now look at our country, right? I mean, everywhere you go, everybody is having a car. But is that actually, worthwhile to invest that much of money on a vehicle and then, keeping it idle for most of the time? Okay, you may be using it for going to the office, and then in the office it is lying idle, and in the evening you are coming back from the office, and then that's it. Maybe you are using it for a couple of hours every day, but the rest of the time it is lying idle. And so instead of that, why can't we have? That's why I earlier said about shared mobility. Why can't we have a shared mobility kind of a thing promoted, and then public transport system promoted, and also excellent infrastructure for people in the urban areas, instead of all these cars and parking areas, and instead of that, why can't we spend time and money and our efforts for having something different? And those models are successfully done in many parts of the world. For example, look at Singapore, what they are doing. To own a car in Singapore, it's very expensive, and they have limited the number of cars in the city because it's such a small place. And they have limited the number of cars. Even if you have money, you cannot buy a car because you have to wait in a queue for many months and maybe years to get a permit to get a car. And they are also having a entry tax for going to the downtown areas and all that. So that is one way of looking at it. And the Scandinavian countries, we have excellent examples of Scandinavian countries redesigning their cities. The entire cities are being redesigned for people and cyclists, and instead of cars and parking areas. So that is creating a good environment for them to have a much more healthier life, and they are not wasting their money on a piece of metal, and they are also becoming more happier, and that's how they are spending their time. So why can't we also promote electric mobility? I'm not saying that we should not be promoting any electric vehicles at all. No, we can promote, we should be promoting electric vehicles, but never promote private ownership of vehicles. So at the policy front, if the government is taking such a policy, it will be considered as an anti-industrial move and all that. So there will be a lot of backlash against the government. But at the same time, if I am in a position to convince people, saying that, hey, why are you doing this? Why don't think that the electric cars are very green? That is the message that I wanted to convey. Because even electric cars, they are also producing a lot of emissions at the time of its making. The batteries are not environment friendly. Life cycle, when we look at the entire life cycle of any product for that matter, even in the case of alternative energy, the clean energy segment, even if you look at the solar panels for solar energy, the solar panels are also made with a lot of materials that are environmentally damaging. And what is going to happen after the life cycle of that product? So that is also a major threat as you rightly said earlier, that when we are inventing something, when we are trying to find out a technology solutions for a problem, it's creating another problem in the future, right? So electric mobility has to happen. Definitely, it has to happen. Because it is more efficient than running an IC engine, and it is more, tailpipe emissions are not there. All these things are true, but it should not be promoted as a personal mode of transport. It should be promoted as a shared mobility equipment, or things like that. So that is what I wanted to convey in that message.
Right. Yeah, I think the post was very well taken because yes, you made a very clear point, and the point was loud and clear, and the larger number of people seem to follow that that thought of yours, that I mean, mindless consumption needs to be stopped, and somewhere down the line, I think you need to go a little deeper down and address all of those other industries around it which is created this problem. For example, the advertising industry. The advertising industry is responsible some ways to create us into consuming mindlessly, because it's all a loop. And if you don't have the advertising agencies, I mean, and the industries won't survive, because advertisement agencies have the capabilities of selling even crap, parceling it and saying it's gold. So yes, I think there are so many problems that we have, and you also rightfully pointed out that even your EVs, these batteries, the solar panels have materials which is can be very environmentally hazardous, though there's no comparison compared to the ICE for fossil fuels at this point in time. But yes, even EVs, batteries, and even your phones have a lot of. In fact, I've done a episode with Israeli scientists on the problems with technologies today and how it can be environmentally hazardous. And yes, I think we need to look at it in a very narrow lens about the problems. You mentioned about shared mobility. I think we're getting into a shared rental economy, and that needs to be promoted. The policies needs to be designed in a way that we create accessibility and infrastructure that everybody can have. You pointed out, and it's all possible that nations like Singapore has already done that, and it's just that we need to copy the brilliant model that they have done with their car light policy. So I think our policy makers need to relook at where they can correct themselves and how we can, because just saying that 2070 we're going to go net zero is I don't know whether we are the world has the privilege to wait so long to go net zero. Now technology, since I am a tech maximalist, and this podcast, I interview a lot of technology people, and I've interviewed people who are working on carbon capture and geoengineering, and leveraging artificial intelligence for climate crisis. What are your views on that? Are we pushing it too much, depending on technology too much, or is there other possible ways besides technology where we could reverse the global climate?
See, when we look at technology, let me ask you, are we looking at a solution without looking at the cost of it? Okay, the cost in the sense, what is the ultimate motive of a technology developer or somebody who is going to market it in the world? It is for profit maximization, right? Isn't it? So for profit maximization, when somebody is coming out with a solution, we cannot always say that that is going to be the right kind of solution for the society. It is going to be the solution for the marginalized people. It is going to be the solution, the real kind of solution. So when we look at various these kind of crazy solutions that are offered, as you rightly said about carbon capturing or AI or whatever, I don't think those kind of solutions are going to have a kind of impact to the problem. That is one thing. Secondly, I have not seen any technology that are sustainable enough to solve the problem of the carbon emission or global warming or the erratic weather patterns or things like that.
Right. Yeah. Fair
No.
enough. I think because yes, there is with artificial intelligence itself is it requires huge data centers, and that requires huge amount of energy. So in trying to solve a certain problem, you are still creating another problem, and possibly with maybe like a carbon capture. Again, you require huge plots of lands with these huge carbon capture machines, which can suck out the carbon from thin air, when possibly maybe trees can alternatively do that. But I think since I am part of the crazies groups, so I think I believe in these human endeavor to go beyond. Yes, there is a way, the natural way to look at, possibly say, can we just grow trees, or look at other ways to kind of see that we can if we can reverse this climate impact. But I'm not really sure whether we have the privilege, because we have pushed the limit of the climate crisis, and then maybe these tools we'll need to kind of leverage and check. Like for example, like you mentioned about the crazies, there's Elon Musk who has invested around $100 million on carbon capture technology. Maybe if it comes true, maybe if it could be solving some kind of a proper problem. I feel some of the biggest auto manufacturing companies, yeah, and even nations have 2050 or 2070 as a target to go carbon neutral. India's commitment at the COP26, the pledge was 2070 again for zero carbon emission. How happy are you with this? Is this arrogance? Is this ignorance? Or do you think this is plain stupidity?
Have you seen the movie called Don? So it's just like that. We believe that we have another 6 years or maybe 60 years in front of us. But what if it is just 6 months? So what I'm scared. For example, suppose there is a cloud burst in the eastern hills of Kerala. Just you are aware of Mullaperiyar Dam, right? So just on top of that, if there is a cloud burst happening, uh, and at the same time, if the dam is breaching or if the dam is getting damaged, we what when I where I'm sitting now, right now, we will be getting 3 hours time to save our lives. Okay, if we are getting to know that the dam has collapsed, so we got 3 hours time to move out and save ourselves. But we have to move at least 30 kilometers from here, where I'm living now. In 2018, in just 3 hours time, the water level came to around 5 feet in our home, inside the house. Okay, in this place, so we had to move out and live in a refugee camp for a week's time. So if the dam is getting damaged, we will get 3 hours just to save our lives. Okay, but in this 3 hours time, I'm talking about around 2 million people living in the downstream of this particular river Periyar. In this 3 hours time, what is going to happen? What sort of chaotic situation is going to happen on the streets? Many, I'm sure that almost everybody will be jumping into their cars and trying to move out, and it will create a lot of chaotic situation on the roads. None of the roads are capable of handling that sort of a crowd, and then everybody will be stuck in the road in their cars. Okay, those who can walk or run fast, they can probably escape by moving to around 20-30 kilometers from here. So the rest of it, just finished. That's it. So as you said, technology solution, for example, AI. We are installing AI facilities for early warning systems and all that. So we can say that, okay, there is going to be a large cloud is coming to Mullaperiyar side, and then it's going to rain pretty heavily in the next 24 hours. Okay, then we got 24 hours time, right? But even then, we will be losing all the properties, all the everything, right? So the same thing, when Oki, normally in the western side of India, we never used to have cyclones in the Arabian Sea. Arabian Sea used to be very calm and peaceful so far. Now Oki came, right? Now this sort of situations, when we are going to have this sort of serious, very, very serious climatic events or natural calamities happening and going to affect everybody in a very serious manner, then probably there will be a time when we will be forced to take action. So far we are talking about, okay, let's do this, let's do that, let's we have another 5 years time or 10 years time or 60 years time to mitigate or change the course of our lifestyle and consumption pattern. But if these kind of calamities are happening, it's going to force us to do this. Say, for example, what happened in Russia-Ukraine war. Again, when war is not a good thing for anybody, it's devastating for that country and for the people. But when the oil supply has been stopped to Europe, in the winter time, they cannot say that, okay, Russia is doing wrong, we don't want to buy any oil from Russia or any gas from Russia. No, they cannot do that. Because if they say that, in the winter, there will be people dying like anything in Europe. Very simple. So when Croatian wheat was not exported to many countries, those countries are becoming, in utter chaotic condition. And India is supposed to export wheat from here to different countries. And India is going to stop that. India stopped it, actually. The private export of wheat has been stopped. So events need not be, as bad as, what was shown in Don't Look Up movie. It need not be as small as an Oki cyclone as also. These kind of drastic climatic events will definitely force us to take action, and much more drastic action in the coming years. To my calculation, I think we may be having another 5 to 7 years time for having a human interference, to control and stop the climate change related serious issues. For example, the kind of 1.5 degree or 2 degree temperature difference that is envisaged, that will happen in another 5-7 years time, and that is the tipping point. Once the tipping point has reached, then you have absolutely no control, and there is no point in repenting. There is no point in crying loud at that point of time. There is no point in saying sorry, I'm sorry to your children, because that will be too late. That's what I feel.
Right. I mean, I hope that this reaches to everyone, because yes, I think there is no point in crying, because like when COVID happened, we all complained on how none of the nations were prepared. Now we are seeing these signs of drastic extreme weather cases happening too often for comfort. And you mentioned Kerala, I mean, your area itself, and it's happening everywhere. When I was in Bombay, flooding was a common occurrence every rainy season, and it was happening. And Bombay happens to be the richest state. The BMC has enough money to possibly support other states, but I guess we the like to live with those continued problems, because once the problem goes, the mechanism of making money goes. Because till the problem is there, you can say, okay, let's allocate a budget so that we solve that, but let's not completely get the problem away, because then there won't be any space for us to make money. So this capitalism world of greed, I think there's so many problems. It just needs to go below, where we need to say, okay, the advertising agency is a problem, the government, which the bureaucrats, where they are looking at, like, the Mitti River itself, the Bombay, the Mitti River had some around, I don't know the exact numbers, I won't really, but a huge budget to clean up the Mitti River, but nothing has been done. Maybe a small attempts have been made, but it remains choco blocked. And these are huge problems. It's Bombay, Kerala, and so many other. The Goa, where I'm sitting right now, it's a coastal city. I mean, in fact, I just interviewed Gaia Harrington from KPMG, and she took this report of MIT, which was done in 1972. And they did the model that they had created. They took the climate model and various other models, and they ran it through an algorithm. Then the algorithm predicted that around 2040 the world would see a complete disaster. It would see a complete civilization upend, with disastrous consequences. Now Gaia Harrington just last year took the same model, what they were using, updated the model with the current data, and kind of figured out that it's bang on target. We are around 2040, we are going towards a civilization disruption moment. And if we do not take actions right now, like you mentioned, there won't be chance for us to cry, because what do you think can be done to educate the common man and businesses about the urgency of this problem? Because I don't see anybody taking this seriously. I don't see the government taking it, though. Like you said, the government has got a policy of 2070 to go net zero. And some of the biggest carbon polluters being these industries, like these fossil fuel, these OEMs, or these manufacturers of these vehicles. They are all looking at 2070. How do you think, or what do you think can be done to make people realize the urgency of the problem, so they take onus and take the conversation in front of the government and these policymakers and industries?
Actually, that's a good question. When Kerala, for example, we are supposed to be the most educated society in India. But after the flood, after all these problems, in 2-3 years time, we completely forget about what happened and why those kind of things are happening, and what are the kind of uh, measures that we have to take. For example, see coastal regulations on the building ban on the bank of the river. Leaving room for river. There is a concept called leaving a space for the river to overflow. So these kind of concepts and solutions are already known to the people, or uh, to the policymakers and the bureaucrats, but and the media people. But unfortunately, the problem is that uh, you know we don't implement it. Okay, so we don't implement it, thinking that things will be all right. Just like it will be uh, this the coming out of the comfort zone of whatever we are doing right now. It's not an easy thing, uh, and that is where the idea of AMG principle put forward by Professor Chetan Singh Solanki of IIT Bombay. uh, he's traveling around India for Energy Swaraj, as a mission. He is talking about how the solar energy can be used as a decentralized method of generating electricity, and also going away from the grid. That is what he is always talking about. So he is telling that you have to apply the principle of AMG: avoid, minimize, and then generate. Okay, avoid means there are so many things that we can avoid in our day-to-day life. Say for example, he is telling, why do we need to have a fridge in the house? Okay, what do you keep in the fridge? Whatever you are keeping in the fridge, it can be freshly. If you are keeping vegetables in the fridge, it's not healthy. We can buy vegetable on a daily basis from the shop nearby. If you are putting milk in the fridge, that also can be avoided. In olden times, 100 years back, or maybe even 30 years back, people lived without any refrigerator, right? So milk is also not required. Then what else are you doing with the fridge? You're making a lot of food, keeping it in the fridge, taking it out, heating it again, which is such an unhealthy practice, isn't it? So avoid things that can be avoided. Refrigerator can be one example. Ovens can be another one. ACs can be another one. So avoid those things that can be completely avoided, and then go for minimization. The lighting, for example, we go for LED lighting. All the electrical gadgets can be star rated, 5-star rated gadgets can be used. So like that, minimize the consumption of whatever you are using. Okay, for example, use maximum natural ventilation, light and ventilation, so that during the daytime at least we can avoid using power from the grid. So minimize whatever that can be minimized, and then only go for generation of electricity, even if it is from solar panels, because in that case you don't have to invest a lot of money for solar panels. You need very little amount of solar panels. If you regulate your consumption pattern, you don't have to invest a lot of money for investing in the batteries for the solar power backup. And then he is also suggesting, after doing this, after going for 100% solar, you cut your connection from the grid. Why? Because, for example, he is giving an example of Gujarat. In Gujarat, there is a huge incentive in subsidy given for rooftop solar panels. Almost 55% of the entire households in Gujarat, they got solar panels. So what happened? Do you know? Actually, the consumption increased from the grid rather than decreasing it. Why? Because the electricity bill started coming very less in amount. Okay, so instead of 1,000 rupees, they got started getting 100 rupees bills. So then they have started investing in ACs in all the rooms. Okay, including toilet. And then what is happening is that this solar power that they are generating, that is during the daytime. In the night, from 6 o'clock in the evening to 6 o'clock in the morning, they have to extract power from the grid, which is coal powered. 80% is coming from carbon emitting sources. So instead of that is where the policy matters a lot. When we introduce a government policy, if it is a wrong policy, it is going to have a much more greater impact rather than getting the expected benefit. Look at Gujarat, for example, in this case of solar energy. Instead of reducing the consumption of power from the grid, they have actually increased it. Okay, so the same way in the case of electric vehicles, okay, if we are allowing people to buy it for their personal use, this is exactly what is going to happen. We are going to, where is this electricity going to come from? Now it is 75% from coal in India. Okay, and we are in the near future, we are not going to reduce that the coal consumption in India. So instead of having a net benefit of electric cars on the roads, we are going to have a negative impact of that. So that is where we have to be very, very careful while choosing technology as a solution for all this. The best thing is understand the seriousness of the issue, change our lifestyle, just like the way you have moved out of a metro city to a rural area and started to live differently. Live differently means it's not easy. When we move out of a city from an urban area to a rural area, though you have say a very fast internet connectivity and all that, that is not the only thing, right? There are a lot of other activities that can be done in an urban area which cannot be done in a rural area, isn't it? So those kind of lifestyle changes, if we are in a position to make in large volumes, if we are in a position to change our attitude towards what is wealth, and how we can get happiness, and things like that, then that is going to create a positive impact. At least if things are going really bad, we can look at our children's face and tell them that, okay, at least we did not we tried our level best to stay away from the problems. At least that we can do. So that's what we need to do. And campaigning on a massive scale, there need to be a lot more good leadership. For example, in 2016, Modi ji banned the currencies, right, on a fine night. So similarly, if that sort of drastic, that is what I am talking about. When I am talking about drastic and immediate actions, which means that it has to be huge, and it has to be very rebellious, and it's going to. That is the only way, because the time of campaigns and the time of individual actions are already over. We are too late for that.
Right. Santhosh, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast and sharing your insights. Yes, I think we have possibly crossed the line of no return, and if we do not take these drastic steps, I worry not for myself, I worry for my children and the entire generation. Because like I said, the MIT report was scary. Then I think just recently over 3,000 scientists from more than 130 countries have released a science statement calling on world leaders, decision makers, and investors to change the way we understand, plan, and invest for a climate change, to ensure that we limit our future damage. So that there are scientists, there are global leaders, saying that we are at the cusp of either going in a good direction or in a bad direction, and it's on us, the choice that we make right now. And you said we do not have the time, we need to take drastic steps, and I hope that the government, I hope the policymakers, I hope the organization, the industries take a concerted effort and realize that okay, this is a serious problem, the climate is a serious problem, and we need to collectively make a difference. Possibly it might affect economically, but in the large run, we will have a planet. Otherwise, we will be left without a planet. So, Santhosh, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Santhosh. Really appreciate this.
Thank you.